Men are more isolated now than they've ever been, and I'm going to show you why. So, I'm a male, and this touches my heart very deeply, right? And today I'm going to break down why men are more isolated than ever, and I feel this exact same way. So, by the way, my name's Chris, and this is kind of my raw channel. It's no edits. Ironically, I'm a full-time YouTuber, but this is more or less my passion project. I don't need these videos to do well. I don't need them to pay me. I just want to touch base or connect with similar minded people that feel this stuff like deeply in their heart. I'm talking topics about men, because I'm a male, and I'm talking parenting, I'm talking co-parenting, I'm talking anything that has to do with all the steps of being a genuine, successful, wealthy man. And if you're a woman, feel free to also subscribe and help us along the way, because we are not perfect by any means, but I'm going to quit rambling here. Okay, so the first reason why men are more isolated than ever is because of the social pressure to be strong. So this one's super simple. We have all these pressures in media. It's been this way for the last 50 years in media. We're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to show any emotions. We're just supposed to be the rock that you're supposed to lean on. And we're also supposed to support the family. I feel like men are getting more and more shoes to wear, metaphorically, than ever before. Back 30 years ago, 20 years ago, a male was just supposed to provide and he would go out to work. And to be completely honest, I think that's what us men excel at, is we're supposed to be the killers, metaphorically going and getting the lion. In today's time, I feel like we have to wear so many hats and so many shoes. We have to help with diapers. We have to help with daycare. I'm a stay-at-home dad. And it's essentially, we also have to get involved with all of the women's jobs, essentially, that were their jobs. I don't want to get in trouble here with how I phrase this, but now men are also having to stick to that being tough and that social pressure. I just feel like we're wearing too many hats. I'm supposed to financially support this family, and I'm also supposed to be here for everything. I can't do both. I can't sit here and watch the kids full time and take off work while also being the provider. I think that this is a tough one to swallow for women, and it kind of feels like you guys want everything out of us. And I feel like that social pressure is crumbling men as a whole. And I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's my first reason. My second reason is the lack of deep friendships. This one, I can't even express how powerful this is for me. So I have let go of all my friendships, and I know that's unhealthy. Therapist tells me that's extremely unhealthy, but here's the thing. I feel like by the time I weigh out what my duties are as a job as a father, I have to first maintain my loved one and make sure my loved one is good to help support the family, right? Essentially the mother of the home. She kind of comes first. I know some people argue that the child comes first, but I think the mother of the home has to come first. Secondly, I have to make sure everything is there for the children. And so by the time I make sure everything's there for the wife and make sure everything is there for the children, child/children, and then also make sure it's all there for finances, my job, I have to do all three of these. I'm gonna speak this loudly for everyone to hear. Us men are perpetually exhausted. We can't do all this stuff. You want to drive the Escalade and the nice cars and have a chicken coop, and you want all the nicest clothing and the nicest homes. And you also want us to be at home and there to help watch all the kids do all the duties, but yet we have to go out and kill the lion, essentially metaphorically, and get the money to do all that stuff. You can't drive the Escalade if I'm not at work all the time making the money to buy the Escalade. And I'm hoping that this doesn't come across as offensive, but only kind of speaking from a man's point of view and the struggles. I know this is going to probably come across as mildly sexist, but I got to tell you, I don't have any time for friends now. I don't have the effort for friends, and that's why men don't have friends. We don't prioritize it because we have so many other priorities that are above having friends. And I know that's wrong, but What do you, I want to ask the women out there. If you want me to choose between my job and finances or going out and finding friends just to maintain that friendship, what are you going to choose? Do you want the kids to eat and for us to make the mortgage and car payments? Or do you want me to prioritize just working? And a lot of men out there are deeply, deeply struggling. I'm fortunate enough to where like I saw the writing on the wall extremely early, and I worked my tail off to pay off all my debt. I have zero debt. I'll probably never have a car payment for the rest of my life just because like we can't afford it. And it's like the number one debt or the number one financial mistake Americans make is having too many car payments. A lot of us have 2 car payments and the average car payment's like $700. We can't afford that and it's stupid. So I make that sacrifice, and I make all these sacrifices because I know that without it, I'm going to get swallowed. Like society's going to effing swallow me. And if I don't, a lot of these men out there, they're not only doing their jobs, their 40-hour work weeks, but the second they're off, and even while they're working, they're trying to figure out side incomes because they're not making enough money. A lot of the men I talk to, they're trying to do 2 or 3 jobs, jobs where you can try to do it at home, like woodworking, and kind of just step away from the family a little bit and just try to make some extra income, or like selling cars. Literally, these men are being plagued with the idea of how they're going to come up with more money. They can't think straight to like think about friendships. Oh, how should I call Johnny from high school? Yes, some of us are better at it. I'm like a weird entrepreneur, and I prioritize money very high because I learned that with money, you have less struggles. And I want my family and myself to have less struggles. I don't work a job. I'm a full-time creator. It's the best job in the world. And I'm free. But if you don't understand this and like some of these mistakes that everyone's making, and most of these men out here are in this rat race grind. I was in it for decades and it's horrible. And I think that a lot of men are super isolated more than ever because of these reasons. And it's very depressing being a male. I speak to males, and also what happens is I'm gonna go to the next reason here. Men are prioritizing work over relationships. It's just that simple. Excuse me. That's just what's happening, and it's prioritizing work over relationships with friends and anyone else except the bare necessity, right? Family and your loved ones, your wife, your spouse, your parents. That's why everything, I feel like, with society, I think men as a whole are bringing in, like, men as a whole, I feel like, are wrecking friendships for like humans as a whole, because this has a huge effect. If there's like some crazy studies out there, like if men are hanging out and doing stuff, it's because the women are doing it and prioritizing it. And us men feel like women are kind of just dancing around, spending all the money and prioritizing like fun things. Like let's go on a vacation, let's do this and that. And the men are hearing in the back of their minds, we can't afford this, I'm dying inside. But we also want you guys to feel good and do great. That's all we want, is for you guys to just have a normal, happy life. We are okay being miserable. But that is the state of men right now. We are more isolated than ever. And it's, I think that, I'm going to drop that one at that one. So the next reason why men are so isolated is because the stigma around mental health. So forever, men just don't prioritize mental health, right? And all this stuff works against itself. It's almost like pushing a snowball down a hill, right? And so we don't have any friends. We have all the anxiety and pressures of trying to live with our families and push to make sure everything's okay, the finances, our jobs, like all of this stuff. No friends. We're not going to therapy. Men aren't going to therapy. Like that's an old wives' tale. Like men aren't going to therapy. I do, but it's like hard for me to go. Like honestly, this is my therapy, just talking about issues. That's kind of what a lot of therapy is. And if there's any women watching this that are like looking to research men, go and talk to your man and just say, hey, what are your biggest struggles mentally? Like just have that conversation with them and just ask them about their biggest struggles, the things that they worry about the most, and then at least pretend to help their, like, feel acknowledged and work with them to fix the stuff. If you want a happy man, acknowledge his stressors and work with him to make them better. Shout out to my woman. She's like so good at that. And like, work together as a team for the men's struggles. I feel like not enough women are thinking of this. It's always just, and this is going to come off as sexist, but it's this like shiny object syndrome. Oh, we need an Escalade. We need a vacation. Oh, we need this. We need that. These like great women that are doing great with men in their relationships are listening to the men and acknowledging their stressors. It's such a huge deal. And also, I'm going to add this one. I'm just throwing this in there. So, men need to find their purpose in life. And a lot of us are struggling to do that. And men directly attach success to their like meaning in life, their purpose essentially. And I feel like not enough women understand this. In my 20s and a lot of my 30s, I didn't know my purpose, and I couldn't find it because I was just too lost in the rat race of a hamster wheel. I was just trying to make bills, just do that. Oh, well, maybe I could charge the credit cards and this short burst of dopamine. I can buy a boat, But my purpose was actually becoming financially independent and being able to to find the job that I love. That is so huge and crucial for men. If your man is working a job that he absolutely hates and despises every day and goes to 8 hours a day and spends a third of his life doing something he hates, it's a recipe for disaster. I did it. I worked night shift. It killed me. I went through a horrible divorce, being married to a woman for 10 years, and it wrecked me. And by not understanding what my needs were in the relationship, I destroyed myself. I actually started using drugs and to cope with the crap I was feeling. I lacked purpose. I started using drugs and I got outside of my normal, like what's normal for me. I'm not a drug addict. I strive for great things. But when you beat down a man day in and day out of just with him not having a purpose and doing things he hates, you're going to meet a man that you don't know. It's a different man than the person you know. So also the fear of rejection gets in there a lot, He doesn't want to get rejected by his family and society. He doesn't want to screw up. He feels like he can't do all this stuff. And men are isolated. They're so isolated and we're dead inside. There's no money to spend on us. We're like the last of the tier of hierarchy to like, well, dad doesn't need tennis shoes. He'll wear the same tennis shoes for 14 years. And a lot of us are okay with that, but some of us aren't. We're all sort of different. I'm a little bit more artsy, I guess you'd say, and I like spending money on shoes. It matters to me, And it just depends what you're into. Maybe your man's into tools. A lot of us are into tools. Some of us are into like landscaping, grass seeded. Just speak to your man and get to know them. It's kind of weird. I feel like I'm speaking to women now a little bit too, and yeah, we do have some female listeners in here. So I think another one is unrealistic expectations, right? So like men are battling these unrealistic expectations. We have to be everything in the home. We have to help with dishes, help with laundry, help feed the kids, change diapers, let the dogs out. Whereas like 30 years ago, we weren't doing any of that, and we were going to work and essentially bringing food home on the table, And honestly, for most men, that's easier than doing all the family stuff. I personally believe that men aren't designed, especially some of us, aren't designed to do a lot of this family kid stuff. I play Barbies with my daughter all the time, and it's so hard for me. I know that like there's so many dads out there that don't do that. Like, you know why? And it's because my mind, I'm almost 40 years old, and I've spent so much time trying to make money and just do real world big boy stuff essentially that like, I can only play Barbies for so long to where it's just like, babe, Dad can't do this anymore. And a lot of us have like we get stuck in this like work, you know, like my daughter will be like, let's go play catch, you know, and then we'll go play catch, and then like my mind is looking at the house, and I'm like, man, I have to pressure wash this house. It looks ugly. The neighbors are going to judge us if my boss comes over, sees the house. It's like, we're thinking about bigger scale stuff than a lot of the women like even know. And it's just like, my girl's like, oh, you worry about the wrong stuff. But like, dude, I built this life from like every goddamn little piece. Like it's all thought about. And to just be like, just to turn it off. I mean, I can do it us men can do it for a short amount of time, but like going to the zoo for an 8-hour long day of just kid expeditions and stuff, us men really struggle. Like our minds are like creating things, building, working on lawnmowers, changing tires, building houses. Like I do truly believe we are different than women. And when we have to take a lot of those like emotional cards or like roles for the family household, it's a lot different. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up here. These are like my top, I think it was like 8 reasons on why men are so isolated, or more, they're more isolated than ever. And here's why. So hit me up in the comments if you agree with some of this. I know some of it comes across as like low-key sexist to women, but I want to speak for men. And doing that sometimes comes across as being low-key sexist. And I have friends, I have friends that I talk about this stuff with. I have comments, I get messages, hey man, you really just resonated with, I resonate with what you say on that. And it's like, yes, like us men, like someone has to talk for us. And I'm just going to be a small little fly on the wall, but if this connects with you, consider subscribing. So without further ado, guys, hit me up in the comments too if you guys have, let me know your biggest struggles, because I want those to be the video topics. You know what I mean? And I know this video style isn't great, but it's easy, and this is more or less like a therapy session for me. It's raw, it's unedited, there's none of this AI crap. Yeah. Later, guys. Don't forget to subscribe.